Moving to the Dallas Cowboys, our first little segment of the day with Dallas sports. Of course, we just talked about it in our intro. The Cowboys lost last week to the Philadelphia Eagles, the reigning Super Bowl champs. But they put up a challenge. They struck first. They got that first touchdown. Javonte Williams, the newcomer running back. The Eagles were able to respond. The Cowboys weren't able to stop them on defense, especially with the run game, both from Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley, especially in the first half. The rain delay happens. The offense stalls on both ends, and the Cowboys got the bad end of the stick um, uh, by the end of the game. A lot of misfortune that happened with the Cowboys, a lot of
Yeah.
drops, a lot of just unfortunate stuff that I guess you can kind of grow accustomed to being a Cowboys fan. You're like, hey, they found a new way to lose this week. What a surprise. I mean, you'd think they found every way to lose, but they find another way. But yeah, I mean, it was still an impressive game, and the general reaction from the crowd or from the fan base of the Cowboys is that we look good. And so I don't know. I mean, what players, if you can answer this, what players impressed you in the loss to the Eagles? What makes you excited for the future or this season?
Yeah, I mean, just this is so tricky because this game was right there for them, right there.
Absolutely.
Like there's like multiple times I just think about you're like if you complete this pass, if you end up hanging on, if you don't fumble as we're heading towards the red zone like Miles Sanders did after having a big run, just right there beating the champs on kickoff night in their home. To me, I have to say Javonte Williams. I think it's pretty clear. I did not expect them to start off that hot offensively, especially in the run game. Now, the run game as a whole was not, insane, I would say. They still had 119 total yards on the
Mhm.
ground, but it wasn't like that dynamic, but it still looked pretty solid against the front seven of the Eagles. Now, you can say Jalen Carter being gone after that first play of the game might have been the reason for that too, but, credit where it's due. They found a way, in spite of him being gone, to keep going because that D line of the Eagles is pretty stout even without Carter. So I would say Javonte Williams getting 2 touchdowns because of the red zone issues that this team has had, the past 2 years. That O line was imposing their will in the red zone against a really stout D line for the Eagles, and that was really surprising to me. This O line has gotten younger with the loss of Zach Martin, and it sucks that he's retired, but I don't even blame him for the way they've just wasted his career. Hall of Fame lineman in him. But yeah, this line has gotten very young, and they really were pushing, getting a good push against the line of the Eagles with Javonte Williams punching in 2 tutties in that game. So I was really impressed. It gives me hope for the run game when you need a touchdown down low. But as far as defense, I mean, they played much better than I expected as well. If I'm saying someone in particular, I don't know if there's anybody that comes off my mind right now. Maybe Ezaraku. I don't know. He didn't play that amazing. I shouldn't say that. A little iffy. But
Yeah, the
as far as
edge,
the
the
front
edge game
seven,
definitely needs some work.
yeah, it was okay. I don't know if the defense has a player that makes me say like this guy was phenomenal. Like I didn't expect him. But offensively, Javonte Williams for sure.
I think Marshawn Nealon had a great game, obviously. I think that was a big part of kind of stopping them in the second half, especially with the run game. But he's the only guy who got a sack in the entire game for both defenses as well, which is insane. I also really, I didn't mind Kenny Clark at all. I thought Kenny Clark played a decent game,
Oh, he
especially
played
with the
good, yeah.
circumstances, having to come in last second in a very popular, mass media type trade where, you're at the end of you're at the end of this. Sorry, I'm over explaining this. You're at the very end of a super popular trade that, you know, involves a superstar and you come in and play like that, not too bad. Um, I gotta say, yeah, I think Javonte Williams really helped open up the passing game. That helped Dak come in, and Dak just had, in my opinion, an incredible game. So many drop passes on the other end, especially, of course, from CeeDee Lamb having 3 drops. I think actually 4
Hmm.
um, that were easily catchable and kind of cost Dak from looking like the superior quarterback between the two. Um, But I mean, it was just prime. The offensive line that you mentioned, not giving up a sack was so huge in the running game, opening up the pass game. I think it just led the prime Dak FU ball, throwing it just straight down the field, launching it, and unfortunately, didn't work out this game. He had a couple of good plays downfield, and but I that game really installed a lot of confidence with me and Dak Prescott. I know it's his seventh or eighth season now with the Cowboys, probably I think 10th actually. Um, and you should be able to have some kind of confidence in him already. But I mean, that game really proved. I mean, that's prime time road game against your bitter rival. Play like that. I mean, you got to be on the boat. You got to be on the bandwagon for him this season. I'm excited for him this season.
Yeah, and I guess Brian Schottenheimer also surprised me from the coaching standpoint. Not scared at all. Actual deception that we're seeing offensively. Not just shifts, but more motioning. I
Yeah,
mean, it was actually deceiving. They're actually keeping the Eagles defense on their heels. Vic Fangio, their DC, on their heels. I mean, Schottenheimer said he was going to do this in its introductory conference, and it's a big difference from Mike McCarthy's offense. Way more shifts, little less motion, but for Schottenheimer, you saw more deception. You saw more like a Sarkisian style motioning for his offense, like, almost going overboard. I saw Mina Kimes talking about last year they ranked 29th league wide in motion at the snap. 42% that they had in that last game would rank fourth for last year. So a big difference from this
great
Cowboys
stat.
offensive look that we saw against the Eagles. Makes me hopeful for sure.
You saw that. I mean, again, Dak 21 for 34 on his attempts should be a lot higher, his completion percentage. And all the separation that was allowed. I mean, we talked about this a lot in the podcast. The Cowboys do not create separation. Dak was finding a lot of open players this game. You got to give a little tip of the cap to Brian Schottenheimer and his play calling. Definitely really impressive stuff from him. Moving on to next week, though, now you got the New York Giants, man. What a brutal schedule to start off the season for the Giants, having to go 2 weeks in a row against divisional opponents on the road. Um, they lost the first week to the Commanders. They didn't look too good offensively. This theoretically could be a really good bounce back game for the Dallas defense. Not saying they played terrible, obviously. 24 points to Philadelphia isn't bad. The rushing game definitely needs a lot more. Definitely needs a lot more improvement. So, what do you see the defense doing against New York and on Saturday or Sunday?
Well, for one, actually generating turnovers. And look, we know that the Eagles are good at not turning the ball over, especially Jalen Hurts. He did a really good job of holding on to the rock, escaping the pocket, and when he's getting pressured for a sack, he looked really good and comfortable in the pocket when Jalen Hurts. So I think that this team against Russell Wilson, who didn't look that good, and people were kind of calling for his job to be replaced by Jackson Dart, and it looks like a few Giants fans are not too happy that he might be lining up for week two, more than likely. I think that this defense will actually get turnovers, and I think they'll actually generate more sacks as well. Russell Wilson is not as great escaping the pocket, of course, as Jalen Hurts. He's lost a little bit of his mobility now that he's like 35 or 36 years old. So I think we'll see more defensive pressures, hopefully more blitzing by our new DC. But, because he was kind of laying off against the Eagles, and I can't blame him, to be honest. That's a great
Yeah,
offense.
you're scared.
But yeah, I think we'll see more pressure for sure by the front seven and actually a turnover because we still did not see one last game. The Cowboys were the only to have to turn the ball over, and that was Miles Sanders going into the red zone. So very tragic.
Yeah, yeah, very, very, very tragic. The red zone stuff. It's just this is the thing with the Cowboys. I hate to be the negative Nancy here with the Cowboys. I am excited for this season. I think that they'll be competitive, but to think that they're a different team from years past, obviously, hey, the offense looks a lot better than years past. Brian Schottenheimer has included a plan that looks better, more promising than Mike McCarthy and Jason Garrett in the years before. But this is a game that they should have won, and they lost by themselves. You pointed out Miles Sanders' fumble. He should have been able to house it at the start of the drive. He let a linebacker come back on him,
Yep.
but
Yep.
you let Miles Sanders fumble the ball. Well, you don't let him, but he does. And then you also have the drop passes and the final drive, final offensive drive, stuff like that. You just get so frustrated with, and that's something that's so common with the Cowboys from years past in the playoffs, all these games. They lose by beating themselves. And so, I always think of the Russell Westbrook quote where he goes crazy when somebody asks him if the Thunder lost the game or the Jazz won the game. That's a true, I mean, it's honestly not a bad question. It's not a bad question at all. Like you're playing down to
What?
your opponent or you're beating yourself. That's what
Yeah.
happens with the Cowboys a lot. And I'm not saying that they played down to their opponent, the Philadelphia, obviously. They're a better team, but they lost the game to themselves. They could have minimized penalty or minimized mistakes, and they would have won that game. The Giants, going to the Giants with the defense, you hit the nail on the. I think that everything that you said was right. I was going to talk about forcing those turnovers and putting more pressure on Russell Wilson. You don't have to stay back on him, have a spy really. He's an old guy. He's definitely not as mobile as he used to be. So, throw that pressure at him, try to get a turnover, at least one. That's what you'd love to see. And that's something big correlation between turnovers and winning the game. You get turnovers on defense, you're most likely going to win the game. Who got the turnover in Thursday night? It was the Eagles.
No.
They ended up winning the game. So, I mean, just a just an interesting game. I'm excited to see them play against a
Right
inferior
there.
opponent,
Right there.
somebody that somebody that they should beat, somebody that they do usually beat, the New York Giants, especially at home. So,
And at the same
hopefully they
time,
can.
like it's still not a free victory. Like I want to say it's a gimme game, but for some reason, like just being a Cowboys fans, we know that like it's never guaranteed. Anything can happen. That defense for the Giants is a little salty, and again, they were on the road against Washington. They didn't give up as many points as I thought they would, but they're a solid defense, especially in their D line.
Yeah.
I can see this team losing for sure. I don't think they will. But, I got to tip my cap to Schottenheimer. This team only had 4 penalties last Thursday. They won the penalty battle by 5. The Eagles had 9, and one of them being
Yep.
Jalen Carter getting thrown out by spitting on Dak.
Some
Uh,
controversial calls with,
yeah.
Nolan Smith and stuff, but yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, third down, they were really good as well. 7 of 11 on third down. I'll take that any day. Just really disappointing they couldn't get this job done because they were right there. I don't know how this team lost this game. But it's a good sign, I think, for the future. They can hang with the Eagles. This is 3 straight losses, I think, to Philadelphia as it stands 'cause they got swept last year. But yeah, this is pretty disappointing. Hopefully, they can bounce back next week.
Yeah, and another good thing about losing to your division rival in week one is that you'll always play them again later in the season. So you can able to get that revenge on them later in the year. I forget what week it is, but I know it's much later into the season. I don't It's not Thanksgiving, obviously, but
Hmm.
somewhere around Thanksgiving is when the Cowboys will play the Eagles in Jerry's world. And you said you thought the Cowboys were going to beat New York. Well, let's get into the over-under, all right? We got the spread, first of all. Dallas Cowboys are favored to win by 5.5 points. Do you think that they win by 6 points, or do you think that the Giants cover the spread?
I think Dallas can win by at least a touchdown. So I got them winning by at least 6 points. I got that to be covered by Dallas.
Yeah, I think their historical dominance with this team. I don't think Dak Prescott has lost to the Giants at home since
His
this
first
first
game.
year. His first game, literally his
Oh,
first game.
hilarious.
Um, yeah, and Cowboys got the rest advantage as well. I don't know how huge that will end up being, but I think the Cowboys cover the spread. Um, and you know what? Start the season 2-0 by covering the spread. 1-1 wins and losses, but 2-0 covering the spread. Hey, not bad. Moving on, Dak Prescott yards, 245 and a half yards. Do you think he goes over or under this game?
I think over. I think over. I think my guy Dak's a flamethrower these days. Hopefully his receivers actually help him out this time around. I gotta say also, like, I feel like a lot of other teams, like their guys hang on to everything, especially defenders. You saw that Rams Texans game, some of the picks that the Rams were getting, man. Like, why can't our guys just hang on like that? Why can't any of our receivers hang on? Even CeeDee Lamb was dropping balls. Anyways, I got Dak going over. I think he'll get it rather easily.
Yeah. I'm leaning over, but I can also see it being well under. Just depends on the flow of the game. I think that this is a game where you open up attacking, with the pass, but if they get ahead, I could see them easily starting to slow down the offense and getting more um, quick gains with the rush. And so I'm gonna lean over. I'm gonna say he gets to 250. Next one, we got CeeDee Lamb, 82 and a half yards. What do you got?
I'm once again gonna go over with this. I think CD's really motivated after last week. Quite possibly the quietest 110 yards you'll ever see. Seven catches, 110
Absolutely.
yards, and still felt like he had stuff on the table because he did leave stuff on the table. He quite literally dropped three or four balls like you were talking about. If you had him in fantasy like I did in my main league, it was a little bit of a sour taste you had in your mouth as you were going to bed, but yeah, the guy could have had at least 140 yards, probably 130 for sure without those drops. So I think he'll get over against the Giants. He usually plays well against New York. I think he'll be over by far.
That's why I'm going to go over for CeeDee Lamb as well for 82 and a half yards. He had over 100 yards in both of his games against New York last year. Definitely a good bet. 110 yards, like you said, against Philadelphia. Definitely going over for CeeDee Lamb. Um, this one's again interesting one. Jake Ferguson is at 38 and a half receiving yards. What do you think, over or under?
I'm gonna go under on this. Not because I don't think Ferguson can't have a good game, but I think he'll be again more in the short yardage game. You see Jake Ferguson get involved either on those seam throws that he dropped, of course, against with Dak again the kickoff game, but he's usually in the flats as like a safety blanket. If not, he's going to him on third down to move
Mhm.
the chains ever so slightly. I don't think he'll be able to get a lot of yards in this game. And again, that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. Dak has CD and George Pickens at his disposal.
Yep.
So if he gets under 38 yards, that's not a terrible thing for the offense. Nonetheless, I think he'll go under, possibly have 20 something to a low 30 number.
And I think Jake Ferguson, I think he'll go. I'm leaning over here. I think the Giants have a weak pass defense, and I think that we're going to really exploit it. So I'll go over on this. The next one is Brian Anger punts. He is sitting at 3 punts. Do you think he has three or less punts in this game, or more than 3 punts?
I'll go under on this. Let's get risky. I'll go under.
Okay.
I think that this team, when they get in Giants territory, they got something to prove in their first home game of the year. We're going to see them going fourth down a lot, I think, and to see what they can do against this Giants defense. Because of that, I think Anger will be in the team. Will be on the field much less, possibly two punts in the game. Much more Brandon Aubrey action than we saw in Week 1. Also a great game he had, but I think we can see more Aubrey and more fourth down possible conversions for the Cowboys offense. Less Anger.
That basically sums me up. I think he goes about 3 punts. Looked it up as well last year, the 2 games against New York. I know these are not really too much of things to go off of. Both teams are different. But he had 3 punts or less in both games against New York last year. I'm gonna go with that. The Cowboys stay aggressive. I'll go less. I'll go 3 punts. And then
All right.
lastly, what's your score prediction?
I think Cowboys win 31 to 20.
31 to 20. I think that's respect. I'll go 27-17. 27-17 sounds about right. Maybe 28. Who knows? No, 27. 27. 3 touchdowns, 2 field goals.